guys, welcome to Peripheral Vision, and today we're taking a look at the Nintendo 64 controller. Now, this review is a long time coming. I've done a ton of reviews on third-party N64 controllers, so now we're going to take a look at Nintendo's best effort for its 64-bit console, and okay, I guess we can get this out of the way now. It's shaped funny. There. Done. It's shaped kind of like a trident, and it's actually not a trident, it's a M, the letter M, if you can see it here. And the reason for that is because it was actually designed at the same time that Super Mario 64 was, and they were very connected in how they related to each other, so that's part of the reason. It was obviously functional, not just a tribute to Mario, but the way they would like you to hold the controller is twofold. Either you can hold it like this, like a traditional controller with the D-pad and the L button being accessible, or you can hold it in the middle with your thumb on the joystick and your pointer finger on the Z trigger on the back here. Now, a lot of people didn't like this design choice because it limited the amount of options that you had. You couldn't have access to all the buttons with any one hand formation, so that kind of limited what you could do with the N64 controller. And it wasn't that big of a deal, honestly, because most games just use the middle prong. They didn't really use this one over here. Now, the D-pad itself is of fairly good quality. It's a Nintendo D-pad, so you can expect good things out of it. Unfortunately, the quality is kind of irrelevant because there's only one or two games, the notable one being Kirby 64 Crystal Shards, that exclusively use the D-pad. Most of them just use the analog stick here. Now, on the other side of the controller, we've got the very big, bright A and B buttons, and then the C buttons. The C buttons were considered the camera buttons. That's what the C stands for. And in a lot of games, however, because there weren't a lot of face buttons to work with, they just made the C buttons other face buttons. So in games like The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, you have the C buttons being weapon triggers and shield triggers and all that stuff. So, but for the most part, they were considered to be camera buttons. On the top, we have someone's name and the L and R triggers, which are pretty standard, but pretty comfortable. And that's all for the buttons and layout, except for obviously the big red start button, which all Nintendo, well, on the Wii it's a plus button, but the start button was still around during the 64-bit era. Kids these days, get off my lawn. Now, there's actually a couple of interesting side notes that I'd like to bring up, and the first is on the back side. And you'll notice there's a big hole in your controller. Don't worry, it's not broken, it's not incomplete. This hole is supposed to be here, and it is a port for special accessories. Now, those accessories could include a number of third-party things, but the main Nintendo accessories that were to be put into here include the rumble pack, which would have haptic feedback, which would vibrate your controller when actions happened in certain games, and as you can see, they all fit in just like this. You hear a satisfying click when you put them in. And most of them required a battery pack, or at least the rumble pack did. You had the controller pack, which was functionally a memory card. Now, there weren't a lot of games that used the controller pack eventually. Most of them just turned to internal memory, a save battery, so the controller pack wasn't used in very many games. And finally, the transfer pack. And the transfer pack allowed you to put Game Boy or Game Boy Color games into here and connect them with your N64 games and share content across different games. And that was a really neat idea. Now, as I mentioned before, there were other things that went into the back of this, but those were the main Nintendo ones. And if you'd like to learn more about them, I do have reviews of all three of those items on my N64 playlist, so go check those out. On top, we have a very nice engraved Nintendo logo here. And that is pretty much it. Now, some facts about the joystick. When you turn on the console, the position that the joystick is in calibrates it. So usually you're not touching the joystick, so when you plug it in and you turn it on, that's the position it sees as the center of your play. You can reset that, you can recalibrate it by pressing Start, R, and L at the same time, and that will recalibrate your joystick. Another interesting fact is, if you take another N64 controller, in this case, the awesomely colored Atomic Purple model, a select few games could allow you to use dual analog. So you could take one controller in each hand and use dual analog. And an example that comes to my mind immediately is Robotron 64. You could control his movement with one analog and control his firing with the other one. And there's a number of others, but that's a cool fact. And while we have the Atomic Purple out here, I should note that the Nintendo 64 controller came in a variety of really cool different colors, and most of them were attached to specifically colored systems, but unfortunately there's no Atomic Purple in 64, and I'm still disappointed in that. I am still upset about that, but Atomic Purple, you will see your rise to glory one day. Hopefully we'll get one of those see-through 2DS's in Atomic Purple. I would buy the crap out of that. But that is it, folks. Oh wait, there's a problem. Of course there's a problem. Well, no, the funny shape to some may be a problem, but I don't really care about that. What I care about, and this is what I mentioned in all of my third-party ones, all of my third-party reviews for N64 controllers. You look closely, you'll see a powder residue on the insides of this. Now, what that is the stick, the analog stick, wearing down. That's actually part of the plastic that makes it the analog stick. And over time, that will make this stick useless. It will make the controls go wonky, and it's generally not the highest quality, not cheap Chinese plastic kind of a quality, whatever, but not so great either. And that is a problem, and it can really ruin. That's why I don't personally use Nintendo 64 controllers when I play these games. Sometimes I will if I'm at like an event or something, but for the most part, just to maintain the condition of them, I use third-party controllers, and if you'd like to see reviews on those, they're all in my N64 playlist. But I will say this is an interesting piece of Nintendo history, and it certainly is the oddball in the Nintendo lineup of controllers. But you know what? For people that aren't hardcore or anything like that, I'd say you'll end up, if you have an N64, you'll end up getting one of these anyways, so try it out. It's a fun little controller, and yeah. Later days. It also looks like a spaceship.